Welcome to Retirement with Rick. I'm your host, Rick Rodriguez, retirement mortgage specialist and national director of reverse mortgages here at VIP Mortgage. Each episode, I try to bring you some insightful topics having to do with retirement, from how to make your money work better to how to utilize housing wealth in a retirement strategy. Today, I'm excited to welcome Caroline App, who is a How Money Works Educator based right here in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Caroline helps people take control of their finances by understanding the fundamentals, from budgeting and investing to protecting wealth and creating financial confidence. Through the How Money Works framework, she teaches simple, practical steps that empower people to stop being confused by money and start putting it to work for them. In today's episode, we'll discuss how financial literacy plays a role in retirement success, common money traps to avoid, and how your housing wealth can fit into a broader, more confident retirement plan. With all that being said, Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate you having me, and I couldn't have said it that better myself.
Yeah?
I think I'm going to need you. Whenever I walk into a room, I'll just have you go ahead of me and just
Excellent.
introduce
Be your
me.
pitch man?
That'll be perfect.
Okay.
You're hired.
I'm hired. Excellent. All right. I'm retiring.
Yes.
Show's over. We're done here. Okay. Well, thank you for that. It's great to have you. Getting right into it, how did you become a How Money Works educator? What was the process there?
Well, actually, I've done a lot of things in my life. I was a school teacher, and I worked at Caesars. I worked for Target,
Sure.
and so I was always really looking for something that really made a difference. And I have a daughter. She's 11. And when I was working at Caesars Palace, I was going in at 7 o'clock and getting out at 6 and not seeing my daughter at all. And then my mom got sick, and I took some time off to help her get better. And when I came back, I thought to myself, what is the definition of madness? Doing the same thing over and over again, or rather insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. And I had a friend of mine that was in the How Money Works field, and he said, Caroline, the two things you need to do to be successful in this business is, number one, to have a good heart, and number two, do you like people? And I'm like, well, absolutely. And I feel like with this career and this calling, I really am making a difference, because when I sit down with people and they think they can't retire, or they have no protection, they don't have a will and trust, and I'm able to sit down with them and change the trajectory of their future because they didn't know how money worked to begin with. And, the words of Martin Luther King when he said, "Let me live so I make a difference to someone." I hope that I make a difference to a lot of people, just like you do, because we are able to bring that knowledge to our clients and the community that where else are they going to get it?
Yeah, well said.
So for me, it's really is making a big difference, and the flexibility, because I can still go pick up my daughter,
Yep.
and at the same time, I'm able to run my business successfully and work with my clients.
Yeah, well said. I'm sure that checks a lot of boxes.
It
both
does.
Personally and also from a business standpoint as well. So with everything you've learned so far, if you could go back in time and you can speak to Caroline, the 25-year-old.
You mean that's 5 years ago?
Yeah, I'd say not
Okay.
going so far back in
Yes,
time,
I
just
know,
like
just-
yesterday.
yeah,
If you could
yesterday.
go back to yesterday.
2 weeks.
Yes. What would you tell your younger self?
Well, I was always a saver because my dad was really good with money.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd asked him more questions. Because when you're 25, you know everything.
Oh, right,
There's
sure.
nothing anyone can teach you.
Yep.
And so, number one, I wish I would have asked him more questions, because he was an incredible investor. When he went to heaven, he left my mom more than enough. And that's not always the case now.
Yeah.
And then I would have saved more, because, when you think about compound interest, it's, compounding over time. When you start saving at 25 as opposed to start saving at 45, that's 20 years of compound interest that can exponentially grow. And I didn't understand that. And I feel like a lot of people now are going on to the internet and they're going on to YouTube and they're listening to all these people that don't have really any credibility in the financial world. So who are you going to listen to? Who are you going to take advice from? And so I want to be that credible source from the book that we teach from, How Money Works. And obviously my father really educated himself, so I wish I could go back and talk to him and ask him some questions. And I really would have started saving more sooner, because I did start saving because I had a good father to give me a good example. However, I didn't do as much as I should have. And I don't want to be shitting all over myself, right? It's at the same time, that's why we want to educate it every single, I know you focus on retirees, but for example, if we educate retirees, they can speak to their children and their grandchildren and break that never-ending vicious cycle that we want the next generation to do better than we did.
Right,
so
absolutely.
I talk to my dad and I'd educate myself more.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I do this now, because I'm helping a lot of people out there that were me.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Right. And we know, I don't know if you know the stats off the top of your head, but the percentage of Americans that haven't saved adequately.
Oh no!
Obviously, it's a large percentage, right? I mean, what is that? Is that, I think in the book it states that, right? What is that percentage?
Absolutely. 33% of Americans right now have zero retirement.
Retirement.
Very, very little. 44% of Americans cannot come out of pocket $400 for an emergency without going to a credit card, and let's not get started on the APRs.
Yeah.
The average now is 32%.
Yeah.
So people don't understand how credit cards work either. People go, oh, it's free money. No, it's not. Because unfortunately, it hasn't been taught in schools.
Right. And that's going back to the root of it, is getting this in front of kids at an early age, whether it's in school or programs outside of school. Obviously, with those percentages, that shows that a lot of people just haven't been educated early in their life to avoid being in the positions that they're in now.
Yeah.
Right?
So before the inception of the How Money Works program, there were 18 out of 50 states that had some kind of financial class in high school. But that kind of most of that comprised of someone from the bank coming in and teaching people how to write a check.
Yeah.
The kids to write a check.
Right.
That's just, so now it's risen up to 28%, and especially in Atlanta, where our headquarters are for How Money Works, WealthWave, it's really exponentially grown. But again, the situation is we don't learn about it in school, and when you don't learn about money, a couple horrible things happen. Number one, you get taken advantage of. Number two, you make mistakes. If you talk to your audience, every single person will admit to some really big money mistake, because they simply didn't know.
Right.
And so my thing is, when you know better, you do better.
Right, 100%. Now, we're here in Las Vegas.
Oh, yes.
So for our Las Vegas community here, and of course, we're unique in a lot of ways, but when it comes to money, we're also a little unique in how people can make money, and probably more so how people can spend money versus other places. So living here in Las Vegas, working here in Las Vegas, how has the city itself and the dynamics of the city influence in how you teach financial literacy?
That is a really good question. And I think the two big factors that we have here is, interestingly enough, in Times Magazine a couple of years ago, they talked about the college and the percentage of people with a college degree in the United States. And the average in the United States is 24%. Not a great amount, and not saying we have to go to college, but here in Vegas it's 12%. And so why is that? Because of our industry. We have an incredible, F&B, food and beverage, the hospitality.
Right.
So the first point I'm making here, Rick, is that there are a lot of people that make a ridiculous amount of money in restaurants, in bars, in the casinos. And especially, you've been in Vegas for a minute, think about valets. They were making six figures, running 10 feet and parking a car. Now, not as much anymore, but the big thing is because the money comes easy, the money goes easily.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the mindset is like, well, I can spend all my money tonight. I can always make more tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they just think about tomorrow. They don't think about next week or the week after that. Now, I've got some friends that take my class at the gym that are, have been working in the industry, and they're cocktail servers, and they've made really great money, and they've actually put it to work. But a lot of people haven't. That's the first point I wanted to make. And the second point is the gambling. Once again, this city was not built on winners, and we know this. Those big, huge casinos are people that have lost money, and if you go into a local casino, there's a lot of locals out there that do a lot of gambling, and gambling and saving just don't go into the same. They're two completely opposite. So those two things are things we do need to address. And then also we have a very wealthy community here in Vegas as well. However, the interesting thing is that a lot of times people make a lot of money, but they manage to spend even more. And so those are all things that we have to take into consideration when we are educating people. And that's why it's so important that we've been going into schools, because we're teaching kids right when they're starting to make money before they learn all the bad money mistakes.
Yeah.
Because those are two things we really have to take into consideration.
100% everything you just said. So, for our friends out there who, are living the Las Vegas lifestyle, we could probably say, hey, slow down. But, we also, maybe don't want to take all the fun out.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there a balance there? Is there a way that the two can coincide where you can, allocate some time to have that type of fun lifestyle within reason? We don't want anything crazy, but have that fun lifestyle, maybe do some recreational gambling, if that's your thing. I'm not saying that's my thing, but if for those who are out there like, hey, it's a little piece of entertainment for me.
Yes.
Is there a way, I know you just said a minute ago, gambling and saving do not go, but is there a way that one could maybe, if they really just couldn't give up that type of lifestyle or those things they do for fun, that they can balance the two?
You know what, I think that's 100% correct, because that's where there's another B word comes in, budgeting.
Yep.
Absolutely. We can make budgets for, okay, this is how much we're going to spend on gambling. This is how much we're going to spend on going out for dinner. This is how much we're going to spend on a vacation. Saving. A lot of people put their vacation on their credit card. Probably not a great plan.
Yeah.
And so we also offer a class called Budget and Bites. It'll actually be on the 6th and 8th of November, and I can give you the information on that. But again, just sitting down and being aware of what's coming in and what's going out. So the challenge, Rick, is for a lot of people, they really don't know.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is there's more month than money.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden it's the 27th of October and they've got 4 more days and there's no money because they spent it all down.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are 2 paychecks away from being homeless. And so absolutely, when you have a budget and you're able to figure out what's coming in and what's going out, yes, that makes you happy. You don't want to be living in a hole or living in your house and not ever doing anything. That's not what we're trying to do. When you understand how money works, you can have your money work for you as opposed to the other way around, learning how to invest, learning how to budget so that you can still have a great life and to find that balance.
Yeah. I think you just said it, but take it a step further. For maybe people who are hearing this for the first time, when you say how to understand how money works, what does that really mean? If you could summarize that for someone who's maybe hearing this for the first time.
Okay, so I know you read the books. I'm really proud of you. Yeah. But for most people, one of our simple concepts that we teach is something called the Rule of 72. And I know you're familiar with that. So for your audience out there, the Rule of 72 is a mental math shortcut. It's they talk about it, the 8th wonder of the world. And basically, it is a math formula, yes, dreaded word math, that teaches you how long it takes for your money to double. In other words, from how long it takes for $1 to become $2.
Okay.
And so the way it works is you take the interest rate and you divide it into 72, and it will tell you how long it takes for your money to double. So let's say, for example, Rick, we're both 30, right?
Yeah,
30 years old. Absolutely.
We're going to go with that.
Absolutely. And let's say we have the Rodriguez Bank. I don't know where I found that name, for the last name. But
it's got a good ring to it.
It's a very good ring to it. And the Rodriguez Bank offers a 1% rate of return. Okay, and most banks are actually lower than that. I like to call it 0.0 low. But let's just say, just to give you an example. So we're both 30 years old, and we both inherit $10,000 each from a great uncle. So we know the owner of the bank. We take our $10,000 into the bank, and we decide to invest it for our future. Because we're only 30, we've got plenty of time. And so the bank has a 1% interest rate. So we take 72, and we divide it by 1. And how much is that?
72.
Ding, ding. Man, he's good, you guys. He's good at math. So that means we're 30 years old. So in 72 years, when we are 102.
I can do that math, yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And we don't even know where the bank is. Now that money has gone from 10,000 to 20,000. Now the average bank is 0.09. So it'll take you about 720 years for your money to double. So something as simple as that. Right now, approximately $10 trillion are in savings and checking accounts because why, Rick? People don't know how money works. They don't know how to grow their money. They don't know how to get that money to work for them.
It's probably easy. Just put it in there.
Yes, and your money is going to grow you will go broke. You will go broke safely in the bank.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. So when people don't know how that works, the savings they are doing, they're not making much progress at all. So that's just one example of what we teach.
Okay. That's a great point. And how does this work for retirees? Is it too late for retirees to implement some of these tools, this way of thinking or this approach, or is there still ways that retirees themselves can still grasp the concept of how money works? For those who maybe haven't grasped it, they're now in retirement, is there still hope for them?
100%.
Good to hear.
So, just like whether you decide to start working out at 60 or you decide to start learning about money at 65, it's very, very important when you are going onto that journey to find a professional. Rick, if you were starting to work out for the very first time, would you go to the gym and wander around aimlessly and try to work the machines, or would you find a trainer?
Right.
Yeah.
I want to find a trainer. I want to get to it. Yeah,
Yes.
let's go.
If you had to get a root canal, would you Google it and do it yourself, or would you go to a dentist?
Right. No, I'm with you on that one. A dentist for sure. Yeah.
So that's the first thing you want to do is to find someone that you trust, a financial professional, to be able to sit down with you. Because a lot of times, too, Rick, people don't know what they have. They've never really sat down. They don't know really how their 401k works. They don't know how much equity they have in their house. They don't know if they have insurance. So it's very important that when they sit down and talk to someone, that person can help guide them and help them money work for them and put it into a different other savings vehicle other than the bank. And nothing against the bank. It's a place to keep our money besides under the mattress.
Yep.
It's just that there's a lot of other options. And when you're getting ready to retire or you are already retired, you may be able to be doing other things with where you are currently to be able to put yourself into a better position.
Yeah.
Again, though, you can't do it alone. It's a lot of people, I'm not going to ask for help. I'm just fine. No, they're not fine. That's why when you walk into the casinos downtown, how many times do you see a 78-year-old bartender and an 85-year-old cocktail server?
Yeah.
They're not doing that because they want to, because they know people don't plan to fail.
Yeah.
They fail to plan. And so it's not too late. It's very, very important, though, to find someone that is vetted, that has their licenses, and it's just not some random person on YouTube
giving some wild ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah, understood. One of the things that you teach and was in the book as well is called the 7 Money Milestones. If you can just kind of summarize, I know it's kind of lengthy, but if you can just summarize that. And then for our retirees out there, which of those milestones would you say tend to matter most for people who are approaching or at retirement?
Great question. So the first money milestone is financial education. That's what sets it apart from everybody else. Because if you don't know, you don't do. So I don't care if you're 18 or 80, the first money milestone is the financial education part, which again is very, very different from a lot of other companies because they just kind of go into the different products and investments and they're telling you need to be doing this, this, and this, and they're not actually educating you on that.
Okay.
And so number 2 is the proper protection. And this will be one of the 3 that I'm going to highlight as I go through it. So for retirees, so I'm going to tell you right now, approximately 22% of Americans have some kind of long-term care. And I think you and I talked about that the last time So long-term care is when you cannot do 2 of the 6 daily activities. For example, eating, going to the bathroom, walking, getting out of the bed to walk, any of those things.
Yep.
So what happens is the number 1 reason that retirees go bankrupt is because of the incredibly high cost of long-term care. And so if they're just newly retired, they're in their 60s, they're still reasonably healthy, it's very important to get some kind of long-term care, some kind of protection, so they don't have to spend all their hard-earned money and completely go bankrupt because they're not able to take care of themselves when they get very, very sick. Now, so that would be a very important one. Now, the third is the emergency fund that we all know is very, very important.
Right.
Because the third one, when you have an emergency fund, that is able to stop you from the fourth one, which is debt management.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they don't have that emergency fund. So we know it's in Vegas, we have our air conditioning go out or the wheel falls off our car, And then people go to credit card debt.
Yeah.
And they have 127 subscriptions.
Yeah.
So we also educate people on that. Now, hopefully by the time they're retired, they've gotten a good idea about their budget, and there may not be as many subscriptions, maybe some Hulu or some Netflix, but hopefully that's not going to be a big situation. The fifth one, of course, is being able to cash flow. How much money is coming in, how much money is going out. This can be important for retirees too, because unfortunately what most people don't understand is only approximately 40% of their income would come from Social Security. And with what's happening in Social Security now, we don't even know if there's going to be any in the next 10 years. So a lot of retirees falsely believe that, I'll have my Social Security, I'll have my pension.
Yeah.
Rick, how many jobs now have a pension? It's very rare unless you're a teacher or a firefighter.
Right. That's right.
And so cash flow is important, and that's why, again, that's why we have our Walmart greeters, and unfortunately, we have a lot of retirees that have to go back to work so that to be able to increase that cash flow. The one I want to focus on too, so at number 2, we've got the proper protection, the long-term care. Number 6 is actually building wealth. And that's where this comes in, that even when you're retired, you want to speak to a professional to be able to reassess what you have and how can they reposition some of those funds, some of those investments, so their money can work for them in a more positive fashion. I know that you've been able to help a lot of people too with being able to use their equity in their homes. And then number 7, which is actually protecting, which is the protection, and that is our wills and trusts. You may have heard of Aretha Franklin and Prince. Both of them passed away without a will and trust. More recently, the gentleman from, that show, Black Panther, the young guy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
43 years old.
Right.
Chadwick Boseman.
Yes.
Chadwick Boseman, 43 years old, died of pancreatic cancer, no will, no trust. So to summarize, definitely number 2, which is the proper protection, long-term care. Definitely number 6, the building wealth, which is very important to be able to reassess their investments. And then number 7, getting a will and trust.
So there's still time to build wealth when you're in retirement. Of course, as we know, and there was even a stat in the book that
I'm very impressed that you remember it so much.
Yes, that even greater than the fear of dying is the fear of running out of money before you die. That more Americans are more fearful of that than actually
66%.
dying. There's the percentage,
that's the biggest fear. Isn't that crazy?
So what are, and I think you touched on that, but any other kind of smart, practical ways that they can make their money continue working for them once you're in retirement? Maybe this is the building wealth. Maybe if we can just elaborate on that milestone a little bit more, how they can continue to make that money work for them so we can hopefully avoid that greatest fear of running out of money before we die.
Well, absolutely. Like I touched again on the long-term care. Again, that's very important because that's going to eat away at anything because we don't know if we're going to get sick or not. So it's very, very important to do that. But then also, again, with what they do have, a lot of people have their money not in the right places.
Yeah.
They keep their money in the bank. And again, I cannot go into all the products and things like that. But of course, there are a lot of products out there that will help them. And that's why it's so important to speak to someone that has the knowledge and can, give them different ideas and plans to do that. And like my father was in the stock market, but he was brilliant in the stock market. And so good for him. But not everyone's going to have the time or the inclination to sit and check the stock. So it makes sense to find a financial professional to be able to help you to be able to make the best decision, assessing your risk as well. Some people are way more comfortable with risk than others. And so that's going to play a factor in as well. Like how risky are they feeling with, how comfortable are they with their money and putting it into something that could potentially grow, but they could also potentially lose their money. So that's why it's so important to be able to explore all the different options out there.
So there's more than just CDs, right? Because that's a big one with what I see with retirees is that a lot of their money is just in CDs. And they think that that's, a great place to be, which, not a bad place, but there, as you're saying, without getting into all the products, as you mentioned, but there are potentially some other vehicles, some other products that one can do a little bit better, right?
So CDs in the bank is, when it comes to taxes, just to give you an example, it's not how much money you have in retirement, it's how much money you have after taxes. A lot of people do not understand how a 401k works. It's on, again, how much, so all the money you have, might have $500,000 in your 401k. And I'm not saying anything against the 401k because a lot of people have one. I had several when I was in that field, in the different fields. But the most important thing is to understand how it works. It's very important that if you are working somewhere and you have a 401k, whatever they're matching, super important to match that. If they're matching 3%, then you match 3%, but no more than that. Because at the end of the day, Rick, all of that's going to be taxed. It's in the tax later. It's the tax deferred. So it's also very important that when you talk to your financial professional to find out about there's tax advantaged vehicles out there. So again, when you're going into retirement, you want to have as much tax advantaged money as you do, rather than the tax now, which is our CDs. So even the growth on a CD, you're still going to be taxed on it.
Gotcha.
So I'm glad you brought that up because again, each to his own. There's more out there than banks and CDs.
Yeah.
And it's very important to find out and see what can work for you.
Yeah, or even 401ks. I mean, it's a great point.
Yes.
Maybe what you're saying there is maybe it makes sense to allocate a portion of your income to your company-sponsored 401k,
Yes.
but let's not put too much, as you said. Let's maybe look at some other things that could, as you say, not save you in taxes down the road.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Not putting all your eggs in one basket.
In one basket. Yeah,
Yes.
diversification. We
Yes.
know that. Yeah, makes sense. I know you've already stated a couple things, but are there any other common money mistakes that you see retirees make, and what could they do to avoid them? I know you said one, which you've said a couple times, which is, hey, let's not just keep our money sitting in the bank collecting 0.009, please,
Yes.
right? So certainly that's a big one. Or we were just talking, maybe CDs isn't, the best place either. Is there any other money mistakes that you see retirees making?
Well, you made the really good point. The fact is they don't get explored. They don't want to talk to anybody else. They want to kind of just sit there and kind of hope is not a strategy.
Yep.
And so seeking that help it and then also I guess the other thing too is where that mistake is, I guess you could say, is that they don't take into account the inflation. They're on a fixed income and they're not realizing that everything's getting more expensive and their income is staying the same. And so I feel like, again, not educating yourself can be a mistake because they're not planning for the future. They go, okay, well, this is how much money I have. And then look how expensive eggs are. So now you can't have a nice breakfast because you don't have enough money coming in, which is very sad. And that is why we're so, I want to use the word gung-ho on educating people, because there are a lot of people out there that are living that life right now. It's
too many.
Yes.
I see it a lot too. Yeah, way too many.
I hope I answered that question correctly. It's just,
Yeah.
the problem is, or the challenge is that you haven't thought about inflation.
Right.
And it's a real thing, and it's not going to get any much better.
Right. So, we see a lot of people who, more than we like to see, people who are, throw some numbers out there, maybe take a single person, collecting Social Security, maybe $2,000 a month, and doesn't have a lot of credit card debt. They've been able to at least keep that low or non-existent. They live in a home. Some might still have a small mortgage payment. Some, regardless, are going to pay property taxes, homeowners insurance, maybe an HOA. When everything's said and done, you get some groceries and stuff, there's not much left. And you see a lot of people not living their best life,
Right.
and certainly probably not what they imagined.
No.
In that capacity, that picture I just painted, which is a picture that I see way too many times, more times than I'm like, is anything from what you do, learn, anything that else comes to mind that they can help themselves in that situation?
Definitely what we have done in the past, and I've had some of my educator, my colleagues that, when a person has a very, very high, for example, very high credit card debt, and they have said, okay, part of their strategy is no longer paying for their, wanting to no longer pay their, use their credit cards anymore. They want to get out of debt. They have been doing, a home equity line to be able to pay the debts off so that they can actually live and start saving their money. Now, you mentioned a single person. Would this person have beneficiaries or anyone that would want to leave any money to or their house to?
Most of them would say that if they had beneficiaries, some do not. Most would say that my beneficiaries are doing better than me. My objective is not to, at this point in my life, to figure out how I can leave the most to my beneficiaries. Now my objective, and maybe that was the objective some time back, but now it's gotten to a point where that objective has been maybe forcibly changed on them because of where they're at today. Yeah. So now they're not even thinking as much about their beneficiaries. It's just about what do I need to do now to survive?
Yeah, so and that's where I think that you and I have worked together. I had a situation where I had a person that I know that I actually referred to you because she was at that point, she had no beneficiaries and she didn't have anyone that she wanted to leave anything with, but she had a home that's almost paid off. And then that's why I sent her to you because she was, she didn't realize her house was such an asset that she would be able to use that to your point to actually live as opposed to living, on such a strict budget. She couldn't travel, she couldn't do anything. She was still working at 76 years old. And really all she had was her home. And so there are different things that you can do with that. Of course, that's not my expertise. That's not what we do. But that's why I have you, because I know that with your expertise and being number one in Nevada, you've been able to help people that have been in that situation where, to your point, they really don't have anyone to leave anything to, or if they do, that person's doing better than they are, and they're just trying to make the best of what they can for the next 15, 20 years, because people are living longer and longer now.
Right.
And so this 76-year-old person that I know, she might live another 15 years. And with inflation and the only thing she has is her home, coming to speak to you about the options we could do could be a very valid option. Yeah.
I won't segue into that, but you bring up a good point. I mean, that's a lot of years of retirement for people, especially, I mean, the good news is we're living longer, and that's what we want, right? We want to live longer. We want to be healthier, and, so many more advances in medicine and technology, in order for humans to live longer. So that's the goal for all of us, right? But, for people who might be retiring in their mid-60s or so, that's a very long retirement comparative to, a generation or two ago, right? So we need money to sustain that, so tying in the housing wealth, because that you mentioned it, for a lot of retirees, their single greatest asset is their home. Yet many of them are not utilizing it in retirement planning or financial planning. How, and I know you just mentioned about, maybe equity lines, the example you gave about someone using a home equity line to eliminate some debt and create some positive cash flow.
Yes.
In general, how do you see home equity fitting in kind of a complete retirement plan?
Well, I think before you retire, the single greatest thing that you have, to offer your family or to yourself is the ability to make money. That's the number one thing. And then once you are no longer working, the next big thing is going to be your home, because that's what we've taught. You buy a house and you pay it off. That's what the baby boomers taught us.
Right.
And we're Gen X or Gen Y or Gen Z. I don't even know what letters they are, but
yes.
But again, a lot of people don't understand. And just like we talked about, when you have your home and you don't, you've got a lot of equity in that home that you could be able to use, it's very important to be able to explore those options. And I think, again, going back to the lack of education, people don't know how their house and how their equity could help them. Now, again, that's not where I come in. I'm more focused on the education side, and then what you do have in your savings and in your 401k and your different investments. But again, that's where we have you, right? Because you are the expert in that area, and it's very important that we get that information out there so that there are people that, if they don't know about what their house can do for them, what did John F. Kennedy ask, not what your country can do for you? ask them what your house, but ask what you can do for your house, or whatever the case might be. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm trying to say. So it's important that when there's a lot of people out there that might be all they have.
Right.
They have their home, and they have a little bit of pension or a little bit of Social Security. And they don't have anything else, and so does it make sense to sit into something where you could be doing something, or just try to figure it out on your own, or talk to someone that could really guide you in the right direction,
Yeah.
and make your life positive for the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, you said it. And going back to the education, and obviously in so many things in life, that's where it starts, right?
Yes.
With everything you're talking about and how money works. Step one of the 7 milestones
Yes.
is education, right?
Absolutely.
And certainly with housing wealth and what we do, that's our first. If we had if we had our milestone steps, that would also be number one, is educating on how housing wealth can be utilized with different products, specifically for retirees. And we specialize in the reverse mortgage and how that can help unlock some of that equity and put it to work in different places. From your experience, out of curiosity, have you seen any situations where a reverse mortgage specifically has worked in a person's retirement plan for the better?
Not a whole lot. I've been in the business for 7 years, but I have, more recently, I think I mentioned that, there was somebody that I was trying to help, and unfortunately, where my sense of expertise, there wasn't anything I could really do for her, because she really didn't have a lot of savings. Unfortunately, she hadn't done what she may, would have been, smart for her to do. And so the one thing she did have was her home. And so when I realized that I wasn't able to do anything for her in my regards, it's only natural that you guide that person somewhere else where someone else can be more of help, because I wasn't able to help her with the only asset she really had was her home, and she had a little bit of savings. And so she wanted to be able to bring in more money, and she wanted to stay in her home, which is why I called you, because I knew that you would be able to help her. And I know now she's much happier because you gave her some really great guidance. You explained the process to her, and she's in a better position because of you. And because I couldn't help her, that doesn't mean I'm going to just say, okay, hey, so-and-so can't help you. I will do everything in my power to be able to lead her to someone that can actually give her some of the answers that she was looking for regarding her home.
It's a great point, Caroline, because there's a lot of people in the financial services industry that obviously, we're all here to make a business, make a living from our business. But there's a lot that will not go that extra mile in referring, not just for reverse mortgage, but just anything, products outside of their scope or services outside of their scope. Not all of them. There's a lot of good ones out there too.
Yeah.
But, I do hear that from time to time, where a lot of consumers are looking for just a complete, holistic kind of plan, if you will. And there's a lot of advisors that can't provide that for them because they're kind of short-sighted on just focused on their own company's products and services. So certainly something that consumers need to make sure, and you said it earlier, make sure they're with the right advisors, make sure with the right professionals that have good intentions, holistic intentions. So certainly, that's one of the reasons why you're here too, because I sense that from you. I've seen that from you, and that you are looking, for the entire. You're looking at the entire picture for the overall betterment of the client.
100%.
And that's powerful, and it's very important in the field that we work in.
It's very important to be a good listener when it comes to helping somebody.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, people need to be part of their own rescue as well. You cannot help someone who's not willing to listen and to learn and to put into practice when you give them advice on things. And so there's only so much you can do for some people. And so I do the very best I can, but they have to also work with me.
Right.
And this person wanted some help, and so I wanted to give them some.
Right. Yeah, 100%. For anyone who's maybe feeling like they've gotten behind financially, or they never really learned how money works, I think I know what you're going to say, but let's put it out there for them. What is the first step that they can take today to start turning things around?
Well, at first, I think, honestly, you have to want to change.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the mindset is the first thing.
Yeah.
And, you have to be able to say, okay, well, obviously this is not working. we talk about insanity, right? It wasn't about madness. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But if you really do want to make the changes, for example, if you want to get in better shape, you can't just join the gym and then hope that something miraculous is going to happen. You actually have to focus and actually go to the gym and start exercising and working out. And it's the same thing with wealth. If you really are serious about wanting to have a better future for yourself, there are going to be some sacrifices. So to your point, you were talking earlier about, you want to be able to have a lot of fun gambling or go and have dinner. There's just going to have to be that budget. Maybe you don't eat dinner out 3 times a week. Maybe you do it once a week and you do those baby steps. But again, that the first thing is going to be that mindset to make a decision. So, you know what, I want to do better with my finances. And then you got it. We need to now educate ourselves and then start making a plan.
Yeah.
And put it down on paper and work on your budget. And, there's wants versus needs. Maybe there's that really nice pair of tennis shoes that you really, you need them. No, you just want them. And so that's when you start really having to really shift your entire way you think about money. Your relationship with money has to change. And for a lot of people, the ostrich, when they sense danger, do you know what they do?
They stick their head in the sand,
right? They do. They sure do. And unfortunately, there are a lot of ostriches walking around I'm from South Africa originally, and my mom actually rode an ostrich once. And someone was sort of chasing, and the ostrich just stopped dead and stuck their head down. My poor mom went flying. so don't ride an ostrich. Yeah. Yes. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of people are afraid. And it's because of their ignorance. And again, not a fault of their own. And so that's why with our company, when we realized what a deficit there was in the financial literacy area, that's why the books were created and the videos and the marketing and all the different classes we have, because we really genuinely want to be able to eradicate financial literacy so that people are no longer afraid and they're brave enough to make stronger decisions and they don't have to have that brand new car and the wants versus needs, and they can have a healthy and fun and a great lifestyle, but also be able to make decisions that are going to further themselves, and that they're not going to have to move in with their parents and live in the basement when they're in their 80s and put that pressure on the generation afterwards. I have an 11-year-old daughter. Last thing I'm going to do is expect her to take care of me.
Right.
It's just not fair. It's not fair to your children. Because to your point, people used to work until 65 and then they died at 67.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Right. And that mindset, I was going to, as you were talking, I was thinking, maybe it's harder for younger people to grasp that mindset. In other words, I know even for myself, when I was younger, your priorities are different, number one, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
And the way you view, material possessions and stuff is different than when you're in your, 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s. With that being said, for people who are also older, what's a mind shift, a mindset shift, if you will, that you think can make the biggest difference for retirees when it comes to money confidence? Is even at that stage, is there something that they can still, sometimes they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but can you teach the old dog still a different way of looking at things, shifting their perception to gain that money confidence?
Yeah, I think sometimes you just have to take a really long, hard look at yourself and be able to look back and look at the mistakes you've made, and to, from that moment on, go, okay, well, I have to learn from my past, so but from moving forward, right, because we can't keep looking at the back. There's a reason why the rear view mirror is a lot smaller than the front of the car when you're driving. You can't move forward if you're always looking backwards. So the first thing is to be able to assess where you are right now, and then say, okay, how am I going to make this different? How am I going to change what's moving, how I'm doing things, how I did them and how I'm doing them now. So again, yes, maybe the old dog and the new tricks, but even if you're an old dog, you can still make subtle changes to be able to make things better by, again, talking to someone to see, like, okay, is this the best, the money that I have right now? Because I'm in retirement, so obviously you can't retire unless you have something. So talking to someone, seeing if we can change things around, reposition, that will be the first thing. And then with whatever the reposition is, making different decisions. Mm-hmm. And again, going to that budget.
Yeah.
I mean, people spend so much money. Whenever I do budgets, Rick, the two places that people always drastically underestimate is groceries and dining and entertainment. Here we are living in Las Vegas.
Dining and entertainment, capital of the world. Yeah, how much money is probably spent on that for people, that live here? And that's what I was saying earlier. I'm sure we don't want to take the joy and fun out of people. But there could be a happy medium, a happy balance where you can still, have your fun, but, within reason, so that you're still looking so that you're still looking forward, as you say, and saving and getting ready for the future, right?
And that's why a lot of time when I talk to my clients and they're, working on their debts, are they working on repositioning some money? When they do a great job and they've saved some money and now they have their emergency fund, I go, you know what, you can absolutely reward yourself. Go to a nice dinner or buy that purse you really liked. But now you can reward yourself because you did something really good. I think a lot of people, retail therapy, I've had a bad day, have to shop Amazon.
Right.
Again, Rick, that's that mindset. How about going for a walk instead? Or, you have a gym membership, use the gym membership. Find a way to be able to get yourself in a better place without spending money.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, retail therapy is a thing now. And that's, especially during COVID, people spend so much money on things where they really need to focus on that purpose. And I'm not trying to preach and all that good stuff, but again, you asked me, and that's what it's all about. And being able to, maybe that new car isn't the right answer right now because it's going to put you into even more debt.
Right.
And when you educate yourself, when you know better, you do better. I say that all the time. And again, though, you can only help someone, Rick, when they are ready to accept that help, being part of their own rescue. And so I'm always here to help. I don't charge for any of my strategies, anything that I do. But it's like, if you don't want the help, there's nothing I can do. If you're not going to be willing to make the sacrifices and to save the money and to make better decisions, people have to be ready.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, what the biggest nation is? Procrastination.
Yes. Yep.
Because in your 20s,
see that a lot in my business too.
When you're in your 20s, you've got the world as your oyster. You've got plenty of time. I'm going to wait. And then when you get in your 30s, maybe you're married now, and you want to buy a house, and then have some kids. And then your 40s, you need a bigger car. And now your kids are in middle school or high school, and then they football stuff and homecoming dresses. And then all of a sudden you're in your 50s, and now your kids are trying to go to college, and you're trying to help them out, or they're still living at home. And then all of a sudden you're 60, and you're like, what happened?
Right.
And all you have is, pockets with no money in it, and you've got a cabinet full of medication.
Yeah.
Because you're stressed out because you don't have any money.
Yeah.
And you can't retire.
Yeah. How many situations like that? Yeah.
But again, when you educate yourself, in a class I was teaching yesterday, they were like two 25-year-olds, and they were listening and paying attention. I walked over them to afterwards. I'm like, I'm so glad you're here. And she goes, well, my mom works in the office. That's why we're here. But I'm like, yay, mom, for making her daughters come to the How Money Works class.
Yeah.
And as parents and as grandparents, we need to talk to our kids about that. My dad did help me, but now I wish I could have go back my 25-year-old self and talk to him more about that.
Yeah.
The challenge is most parents don't know. So we can't go and talk to them. So now we have to be able to take that responsibility and accountability and do it for ourselves.
Right.
So that we don't end up like those.
Complete the cycle and continue the cycle over and over again. Yeah. This has been such a great conversation.
I've really enjoyed it.
You make the financial education just very simple, very approachable, which I think is what a lot of people need, to just get to step one, get past step one. So you make it very easy, which is exactly what people need, at all ages.
Yes.
Where can people learn more about you? Where can they find you? Where can they reach out to you? Where can they learn more about your work that you and your team is doing?
So interestingly enough, my last name is App. And I like to say I'm the only app you'll ever need for your money. I didn't say that. I didn't learn that myself. I had a good friend of mine that came up with that.
Well said.
But, I'm very happy to give you my information. And I'm caroline.app@wealthwave.com. That's the company that I work with. And my phone number, I'm very happy to give that out too.
Yeah.
It's 702. I'm a 702 girl. And 275-9191, the grade you want to get.
Oh.
So I'm very excited, whether it's on email or a phone call. I'm very happy to help anybody that I can. And again, the first thing is going to be to read that book. But I'm very happy to donate to that person as long as they read it and doesn't collect cobwebs on their shelf. I'm very proud of you for reading your book.
For the whole thing. Yep.
Yes.
It's a great book, easy read, just like I said, very easy, very approachable. A lot of great illustrations that are weaved in. It's just not like a
Pretend
textbook.
I have the book in my hand.
Yeah.
It's called How Money Works. Stop Being a Sucker.
Yeah.
Because
I enjoyed it. It was a easy read, but a good read, good quality. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, a 14-year-old can read it. So even if you're 12 out there, you can still read it because again, our CEO, he's amazing. And his whole goal is to be able to educate 20 million families in the next 20 years.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that we need to
I'm just very
wrap up with?
I'm very grateful to spend some quality time with you. And I sincerely hope that there's a lot of people out there that are really going to reassess where they are in their lives and they want to do better. And again, it's knowledge without action is useless.
Yeah.
When you know that you want to do more, seek those people out and seek it. So it's WealthWave is my company. We have thousands of educators in every single state. So if it's not me, let it be someone else that's part of my company that can help you.
Excellent.
Thank you
Caroline,
very
thanks
much,
so much
Rick.
for coming in. We appreciate it. And to everyone listening, be sure to subscribe and continue to check out our channel here on YouTube. And remember as well how housing wealth can play a powerful role in your retirement. For those who are also interested in learning more about housing wealth, reach out to us here. Also visit our website, theretirementhomeloan.com. And to our listeners again, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much.